it's delightful always to come west from Athens, Ohio. I live in Shade, so I'm at the very end of the county line between Athens and Meigs County. And it's always wonderful to see just all the stuff that's happening here over at the South Center. So happy to see you all come out. Breakfast has been fantastic. I know I've already gulped down 1 cup of coffee. So I think, Ivory, you're probably trying to videotape this too, so I'll try and stay somewhat still. I tend to be kind of a gyrating presenter. So many of you folks know me as the Director of Programs at the Appalachian Center for Economic Networks. But what I'd really like to do is first kind of start out with my long journey in the local food movement. Again, when Christy did the introduction, I am one of 8 founders of a worker-owned business. So I'm an old co-op hand. It's great to see the incredible support that the Ohio Cooperative Development Center provides to folks like me who started out many decades ago and really wanted to see more cooperative development in southeastern Ohio. So I'm going to wear my Casa Nueva hat here, and it looks like the PowerPoint is up.
I'll get a clicker for you.
Okay, and I'll click to the next slide, it looks like. Great. So here's the motley crew. This is our annual anniversary photograph that we take. Casa started back in the spring of 1985, and we've grown considerably, starting out as a restaurant with about 20 people who formed the cooperative initially. Probably at that point in time, many of us were full-time and a number were part-time. So if you think of full-time equivalents, back in the day, we probably had about 15 full-time jobs that we created. Now, 33 years later, we have probably about 65 full-time jobs, although it's really comprised of anywhere from a staff of 75 to 80. You know, so what do those people do? Well, this is to a large degree our mission. You know, we started out as a restaurant. We grew over time and added a liquor license. We took over additional storefronts in the building that we started to lease as our original restaurant space in the 1980s. And then I think early on, and probably it was pretty innovative back in the mid-80s, I think because of our cooperative values and our connection and the support, the tremendous support that we had from community members, we wanted to figure out how could we really utilize our purchasing power to affect more small business owners and especially farmers in our region. Athens is very blessed to have one of the most, I think, I'll boast, incredible farmers markets, not just in Ohio, but in many ways in the U.S. It's been going strong since 1972, and I think there's been a lot of assistance providers over the years, from extension, incredible county extension agents, to some of the other farm associations, from the Farm Bureau to the Ohio Ecological Food and Farm Association, and hopefully organizations like ACENED and Rural Action that have helped our farm community grow. The direct marketing opportunities in the 80s and 90s, you know, really encouraged more farmers, I think, to look at not just selling direct at farm stands through CSAs and farmers markets, but to try and figure out how they could really create stronger ties and have better win-win relationships, particularly with restaurant buyers. So, you know, just a little bit of our history. I'm going to click through this pretty quick. You know, as I mentioned, we are a worker-owned business. We've continued to govern in terms of that style of legal operations, although we have included more employees on our staff. In the early days, everyone who worked in the business, whether it was in the restaurant, the cantina, or more recently our food manufacturing division, became worker owners. Now it's a little more of a challenge. So we always do have some employees. I think the fact that we operate in that sort of quintessential college town, Athens is home of Ohio University, Athens County is home of Hocking College, we tend to have a little bit of a transient employment population. So if we can coax people to stay after maybe part-time employment and get them to become worker owners, that's part of our value base as well. So if you want to learn more just about what we do, definitely visit our website and our social media pages. How many people ever visit Athens? Okay. How many people have ever gone to Casa? Okay, so I'm preaching to the choir here probably a little bit. So keep coming. We keep needing your business. But again, looking back, this is always that wonderful picture from October of 1985. As I say, I'm always the Where's Waldo of the Casa Nueva anniversary photographs. I just get older, fatter, and grayer. But pretty much I'm always standing oftentimes in the same location. The fact that we've been restaurateurs for all these years, I think we've learned a lot about the needs and the opportunities for farmers and producers in our region. So over time, we've just been able to incorporate more and more fresh produce. We are really, again, rich in specialty production, specialty crop production in the multi-county area of southeastern Ohio. In recent years, and I think Christy mentioned there's a lot of livestock producers perhaps in the room, we've been able to source more and more local meat. Not that there aren't opportunities and challenges there. I think anybody raising livestock recognizes that we have some pretty strong hurdles we have to surpass when it comes to processing. And a little bit later on today, we'll talk and share some of the resources we have at AceNet, hopefully for folks to do more value-added processing in one of our incubator facilities, our Nelsonville Food Hub. But to a large degree, whether it's buying local in terms of food products, being able to access more and more locally produced craft brews, wineries that continue to grow in the region. And I think with some of the regulatory changes, we've seen more meaderies and distilleries pop up. So there's just been, I think, this growth, just as we've seen this incredible breakfast spread, there's more and more demand for local and regional food. And certainly, I think of Brad's programs here with hop development, we just see this exponential growth with many of the breweries. We have 3 just within the city limits of Athens, and they're all trying to figure out how they can source more local ingredients to be able to develop their product lines. Uh-oh, what am I doing wrong? No, Ivory. I've always messed up the technology. So, we've hit on this a little bit. This is really, I would say, at the core of our business, our food philosophy and the values to really source local have been pretty key, I believe, to our success. It's also, I think, made a difference in terms of educating just the community and not just our customers, but folks who hopefully are patronizing many locally owned businesses. So we've been able to do this work, encourage more and more folks to grow, oftentimes not so much a contract agreement, more of a handshake, that I think encouraged many of our competitors. More and more restaurants in Athens, Ohio are sourcing local. More and more of the folks that we work with as processors or growers, they're finding more opportunities throughout the region. So it's not just having to drive to maybe the white tablecloth restaurants in Columbus, Ohio. It's really seeing, even in our smaller rural places, this renewed commitment to buying local. So that's been a huge piece of our philosophy, and we're hoping, that it has continued to affect not just our competitors, but the whole community overall, so that there's just more respect, more appreciation for local agriculture and local business ownership. What we've learned over time, though, is that it takes a lot to buy from 40, 50 different producers. That's a lot of checks to write every year. That's a lot of coordination for us early on in December and January to suggest to our growers what quantities we think we might need. We work with a lot of folks to even grow certain varieties. You know, we're kind of a Mexican-inspired menu. So we work with a lot of folks who are growing all sorts of varieties of peppers that then we're processing both for our menu as well as for our manufacturing division. So as you notice, I'm not reading these slides for you. I figure you all can read. So where did this lead us? You know, we were restaurateurs. We sort of felt that, yeah, we kind of got this down. We can maybe run this restaurant bar. We can make money. I will boast that we've shown a profit every year for 33 years. So, you know, that's telling us something. But we kept making all these products for our menu. And we had all these customers over the many years that we were doing business saying that, can't you put this stuff in a jar? I want to take it home, you know. Or I'm a graduate of Ohio University and I've moved to Cleveland, but I really crave that Casa Nueva salsa. Or I want applesauce that doesn't have additives and that's made with local apples. So we started to look at a lot of the recipes and a lot of the types of products, particularly our sauces, and think about manufacturing them. So the only way, really, Casa was able to do that was to affiliate with an organization like ACENET. So here's the self-serving aspect of the two, as I say, paid gigs I have. I work full-time for the Appalachian Center for Economic Networks. I've done that since the early 90s, and I still continue to work part-time in my own business as the business director. As ACENET opened our first kitchen incubator in the mid-90s, you know, the light bulb kind of went off for the worker owners of Casa. It's like, okay, we don't have to build our own building. We don't have to buy our own processing equipment. We can have this kind of toe-in-the-water startup experience creating thermally processed foods, stuff that can be licensed by the FDA and that we can sell to local grocery stores and other specialty retailers. So we've had a lot of fits and trials and tribulations, I would say, going down this path. So here you've got a pretty tenured group of worker owners, you know, people who know really well how to operate a restaurant and bar. But processing food is vastly different in a kitchen incubator room than doing it in the prep kitchen in the back of the restaurant. So translating that aspect of what we did in-house within our restaurant business and turning it into a processed food business probably would not have been achieved without the assistance and the infrastructure support of ACENET. The Food Venture Center, as I mentioned, opened in 1996. It's continued to expand over the years. And Casa has been, in many ways, one of the anchor tenants in this facility. We've had many, many businesses. If you've ever visited Athens or even gotten to know many of the products from our region, we have a lot of folks doing salsa. We have a lot of barbecue sauce, jams, jellies, many varieties of pasta sauces. So I always say, you know, go into the ACENET Food Venture Center at any point in the day and you probably see something red getting spurted into a jar. We have a lot of different products. Follow us, ACENET works on Facebook, and you'll see some of the many businesses and the many products. So Casa started out really bottling products that we would just sell through our restaurant, and we off and on have sold at the Athens Farmers Market. So those direct sales, I think, were a great first start for us to get a better sense of our customer base. Kind of a no-brainer to do it in Athens, Ohio. People in many ways knew our brand. Even folks that were maybe tourism visitors had the sense of the Athens area, especially the farmers market and many of these locally owned restaurants, as kind of a local food destination. So all of those things really, I think, have been important advantages for us. We've grown this business, or this aspect of our business, over time. We take up a lot of square footage now at AceNet. In our incubator campus on the Athens Columbus Road site, Casa is usually in production 3 or 4 days a week. At the height of the season, when more fresh vegetables and fruits are being processed, pretty much from June to October, Casa is in the central kitchen or the thermal processing room of the Food Ventures Center as many as sometimes 3 to 5 days a week. So we're getting fresh produce. So those apples that are sitting over on the table today, you know, at harvest time, we might make applesauce for 3 or 4 days in a row. And then we have enough applesauce until the next season. A variety of farmers, particularly in Meigs County along the Ohio River. We roast all those peppers and then we process them. We utilize them oftentimes processed in 5-gallon buckets within our restaurant menu, but we use them as ingredients in many of our salsas, our mild, our hot, our poblano, our habanero sauce. So back to that, food philosophy. We've just tried to really go from doing the restaurant business to what is that food philosophy for processed foods. So even a lot of the tenants, I would say, at AceNet, many of them are still sourcing ingredients from larger wholesale distributors. You'll see the U.S. Foods truck or GFS. People are not always buying fresh produce. But what was important to Casa, and to kind of stay true to our values, is if we're buying from farmers and producers for our restaurant menu, then we've got to figure out how to do that just as well and purchase local ingredients that we make into processed foods. So, again, when I say contract agreements with local farmers, a lot of that is just communications. It's not like we're signing legal contracts per se, but we're trying to give our farmers a pretty hopeful, accurate heads up of what amount of corn we're going to need, what varieties of peppers and amounts. A lot of that food that we process just goes into the restaurant menu, and then the rest of it is turned into what we call our wholesale product lines. So probably not real visible within the lights here, but these are some examples of some of our products. You'll be tasting some of them. We'll love your input when you have some shagbar chips and some Casa salsa, because I'm sure you haven't gotten enough to eat today yet, right? So we'll have to, any local food event, we've got to eat local chips and salsa. So you'll have an opportunity to try our mild, our hot, and our chipotle. And those are our top 3 sellers. Mild is probably still the number 1 bottled product that we sell. But we also early on, wanted to take some of the things that we made for the restaurant and at least sell them direct through the restaurant or at farmers markets or some of the food festivals. So we started to make products, pickled asparagus, we have dill pickles. As I said, we work with one of our larger apple growers in central Ohio, so we do a lot of applesauce. And we make these in sort of limited batches. So we process or pre-process enough ingredients that we can pretty much make mild and hot and habanero and poblano and chipotle salsa year-round. But when the apples come and when we process the apples, we're done for the season. So we call these product lines our limited harvest line. We started out, with very simple labels. Again, I'm not a graphic designer. I just play one. So we created, labels that we just made on a color printer. We would hand and cut them, and we'd use spray adhesive to put them on. And that was how we kind of got, I would say, more input from our customers to figure out what products they really wanted before we invested in the expense of professionally printed labels. So if you look at the picture on the left, that's the old version. The newer versions now, the barbecue sauce, the habanero salsa. Again, these we make in slightly more limited batches. And when I say limited, we might only make 300 cases of 12 jars in a case of these products, where just making mild salsa, we might make 150 cases multiple times a year. So difference between the two lines. So, just some of the things, as I mentioned, direct sales are still really important to us. We like to go to different festivals that celebrate local foods. We do a lot of direct sales that way. We sell at area farmers markets. And again, the more popular products typically are the salsas, but some of the limited harvest items as well, I think, are getting a broader appeal, and more people are purchasing those as well. One of the nice things about selling direct is that we keep that whole retail price. So when you're buying a jar of salsa from us, you're paying $3.75, maybe for some varieties $3.95 a jar. If you go into the Athens Kroger, we're selling them a case of mild salsa. They're making a profit, getting the margin on that, and then they're retailing it on their shelves in their stores, usually in that $3.95 price point. So this just helps with our scalability of our business, is having both this mix of direct sales and wholesale sales. So again, just an example, we're in a lot of independent grocery stores. We've mostly focused on the Athens area, southeastern Ohio. We do have some products in stores in West Virginia. And we're really looking, I would say, at this stage again, to figure out who are our best partners. Are there other tenants in the AceNet facilities that we could do some co-delivering on? So for instance, because chips and salsa go so well together, we distribute a lot of the shagbark tortilla chips as a kind of a coupled product when we're selling to many of our wholesale grocery accounts. And then we make a little bit of money on each case of salsa or each case of chips from shagbark that we sell together with our salsa. We're also, I think, trying to do a better job attracting distributors. So Frankfurt Foods, that's a regional distributor between Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. I think they even have some routes into Maryland. We've been developing a relationship with them. We're trying to, just through our website, communicate to folks, here's all the locations you can find our products. And I think also encourage people, whether it's communicating with us through our website, through email, responding to Facebook posts. What we're trying to find, are there other retail stores that are interested in the Casa brands? Are they working with certain distributors already? Can we get picked up by their distributor to be able to get our product lines to their store? So just a lot of logistics to figure out. Just some examples, peppers prepped, peppers used. We have this large mechanical roasting bin that we use, so really, I would say on a given week, maybe height of the season from end of June through October, we might be processing close to a ton to a ton and a half of local fruit and veg that we're going to incorporate both in our processed foods for the restaurant as well as for wholesale. So, you know, some of the things that we try and do to help support this, and I would say we still do a lot of this kind of on a shoestring. We have a coordinator who really helps develop all the different retail accounts, gets to know those buyers, manages sort of administratively all the invoicing, the accounts receivable, and then really puts together sometimes a team to help do demoing, especially when we have new accounts, bigger accounts like the Athens Kroger. You know, they want us to come in at least twice a month to do in-store demos. And obviously, if we're food businesses, one of the best ways to sell our product is to get people to taste it. So balancing the expense, especially that labor expense, of developing those relationships are pretty important early on. And then the bigger store buyers, especially the larger grocery store chains, they just expect that kind of marketing and promotional support. So it's another expense that you've got to figure out. You know, is that going to be a challenge? You also, if you're creating any kind of product, you might want to give, especially a new account that you're developing, some free samples so that their staff can promote your product and maybe do some tastings or demos in the store. The other thing that we've tried to do in recent years is just get the word out. So, you know, me coming today and presenting to, you know, this room full of folks. And as I said, you know, there's always an opportunity to buy. I have some products over there. If you can't leave this room without taking some Casa Salsa home, we can suit that need that you might have. But I think being able to network, you know, figuring out what trade shows, what fairs or festivals might make sense for you, I think is also pretty important. So how many people maybe are doing some sort of value-added or processed food product at this point in time? Okay, great. So a lot of people maybe still, you know, figuring out, is this a good additional direction for me to head? So just my contact information, I think I'm staying pretty close to time. Christy, she hasn't given me the big hook yet. And we want to make sure that we have time for your feedback and any questions you might have. I know this is pretty quick and pretty much of a broad brushstroke in terms of an overview. And I guess what I want to say is, you know, even though we're a really established business, this is still a steep learning curve for us. I think the challenge for us right now is how do you go from selling to 40 or 50 stores to finding distributors that you can sell to 100 and 150 stores. And then because of our commitment to purchasing local ingredients, we also have to make sure that we have strong relationships with our specialty crop producers, particularly, that they're going to be able to scale up and meet our needs. And we know that, you know, look at this spring. We've had tremendous flooding in our part of a couple counties around us. We've had this really crazy, cool spring. So even when you think you have the best plan in place and CASA and our farmers are all on the same page, you know, a field of peppers can get flooded. So what does that mean? Will you really be able to produce as much salsa as you thought? Because I think for our values, we don't want to have to substitute our recipes, whether it's in the restaurant or whether it's in this manufacturing division, with stuff that we don't believe in, that doesn't suit the commitment we have, especially to agricultural producers.
Great.
Okay.
Questions for Leslie? We have time for a few questions. I know we started a few minutes late. So.
Do you use all organic products?
Oh boy, that has been a big, I would say, yearly argument that we have. You know, one of the great aspects of running a worker-owned business is you have lots of opinions from a lot of decision makers, and you have to get to, compromise. So some of the ingredients are from organic growers, but not all. And that is also sometimes a challenge that we have working with certain retailers, because they might want 100% a salsa that's 100% organic ingredients. The other obstacle, that, not to say it couldn't be worked out, but because we don't have our own facility, we're processing in a shared use facility, we would have to have sort of more detailed cleanouts and a set day that only organic ingredients were used in the bottling room, and then we would need separate walk-in and warehousing space. So it's not that it can't be done, and we talk about it maybe as something that we may move forward on, but we're not there yet. Tom?
Can you talk a little bit about the contract with farmers for their products? Kind of, is that cover everything, or just part of your needs? And then on the farm side, they're exclusive to you, or do they sell elsewhere?
We don't expect anybody to be exclusive to us. I mean, we want them to be able to do whatever makes sense for them. I think what we're trying to do, and to be the best stewards both of their needs and our needs, is to get as clear as possible as to the amount of quantities that we need. So for instance, we might buy local raspberries and blueberries, and we can say, presumably during these weeks in June or July, if we could have 500 pounds or 1,000 pounds, that's sort of the expectations that we try and give to folks. And this is, I think, one of the reasons CASA works with so many different folks, is that oftentimes just the different varieties of peppers, although we buy, I would say, 90% of our peppers from Cowdrey Farms in Meigs County, there still might be things, there might be somebody who grows really good ghost peppers or really good habanero peppers, and we might buy, from another grower. And again, this is a lot of conversation in December and January, typically. We also will sometimes find either established growers that we work with, or maybe very fortunately, we have more and more beginning farmers in our region of southeastern Ohio. So to help them out, we might say, can you grow this? We know you're getting started. And usually we'll pick something easy, like a hard squash or something. So there's probably less issue, hopefully, knock on wood, of crop failure. So if you're a brand new berry producer, we're probably going to be maybe a little less reliant on you at first, but we'll also say, oh yeah, if we could buy 300 pounds from you, let's see if we can meet that mark this year. Yes, in the back. And then try.
Just talk a little bit more
Hannah.
about how growers how they start working with you. Is that a process where folks come to you? Do you do outreach to growers? What's that process look like? And what do you recommend for folks who are approaching a restaurant to really understand about that, and how should they be working with a restaurant?
So I wouldn't say that we're easy necessarily to work with, because we are confusing, because there's numerous food coordinators, there's somebody in charge of the food manufacturing division. So usually what we encourage people to do is get to know us through our website and through our social media. If you know that we already buy a lot of pork from King Family Farms, you might say, is there another, type of pork product that you're not sourcing local that we could provide for you? I'm stepping on something dangerously. Hopefully nothing will blow up. So I think, that approach, get to know us, and we're fine with people cold calling. Absolutely what not to do is to walk into a busy restaurant at 1:15 on a Saturday afternoon with 3 boxes of tomatoes left over from the farmer's market. We probably won't be rude to you, although maybe somebody on the wait staff, might be, I don't know. So that planning ahead. And what we try and do at Casa, we've done an event off and on for years, is kind of producer appreciation night. So it's an opportunity for us to make food and to invite everyone that we're working with. But we also might send out invitations or at least do some sort of media post. So if you're a new OFA member and you're not selling at Casa, or you've come to, I don't know, a workshop or something that AceNet or Rural Action or any of the other nonprofit, Extension, Farm Bureau has done, that might be another way to get to know us and reach out to us. So we're probably more approachable than the average restaurant person. But I think doing a little research ahead of time and then maybe working with, folks like Hannah and Christy at the South Center so that you get a little bit of intel. It's like, how easy or how hard are these folks? Can you maybe do an email introduction? So I don't know, Derek, Derek just started to sell some stuff at Casa. So kind of brand new meat producer for us. A lot of times we'll buy certain things and do maybe specials at first. Sort of like, speed dating. Start a little bit and figure some stuff out and then figure out how to fit. Because we do a seasonal menu at the restaurant, I think that also allows us to be more flexible. So look for maybe restaurateurs who already have some commitment to local or to seasonality.
I did have a question, but you mentioned small farms. This one is Blog Ohio State Extension. And I think Tony has done a good job coordinating the small farm colleges and then the conferences. And I attended when I